And it looks like we are live. Going to give Bawana Beast just a second here behind the scenes. A quick second to add the Facebook group in here. Stalling. There's the green check mark. 5 green check marks across all platforms. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me today for, I think this is the second time you've been on the show, but it's not quite the usual. He's still a good friend and colleague. Mile High Huddle's, well, one of Mile High Huddle's NFL draft analysts and the co-host of the Building the Broncos and the Mile High Insiders podcast, Nick Kendell. Nick, it's been a minute since we got a chance to talk with each other. Let's see, what was it? The NFL draft. I think the live stream for the NFL draft was the last time we got to talk to each other in person. How you been, man?
I'm doing well. I got to say, I like the facial hair. Last time I saw you, that was not as grown on there. So it's maybe a little bit hot out there, maybe a little bit forest smoke fire going on to keep that on there. I respect you for it. I couldn't pull it off. I get like just barely, I keep the scrub, but it matches me. Also, I want to say I wore the shirt for the Dove Valley Deep Divers today because we're diving deep. So this thought's out for everyone. Actually, I wore it to work today too. Like, you know what? It's Friday. We only have a few appointments at the clinic. I'm gonna dress up and enjoy myself today. So happy Friday, everyone, and happy to be here. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, not a problem. And I'm glad you were able to join. Eric, obviously not here tonight. I'm not exactly sure what he's got going on. I think some family stuff for him. Not going to do the trickle zone this week. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, no, the facial hair. My son actually was talking to me. I got kind of scruffy over the weekend and whatnot. And he's like, you should keep your mustache. So I tried it. I was like, okay, we'll see what it is. And it actually filled in nicely. So I'm enjoying it. You should have seen my hair though. I had really long hair there for a while. At least longer than, not quite as long as yours. I remember you grew yours out when over the last year and whatnot, and yours got like wild and crazy there.
It goes out. It's like the Chia Pet, you know. It's very a lot of volume. And I guess I gotta call him out, give him a hard time. My sister's fiance, he's accepted it and gone the clean shave. So I'm like, well, if you got it, flaunt it. I'm at that stage of my life, 29 years old. It's like, if you have hair at this age, you better enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. Mine gets curly. It gets really curly. Yeah. And it's not very easy to keep, because it curls really bad and then it itches and I don't necessarily like it. So the other day I went and got a haircut, had to clean myself up just a little bit to have you on the show. Cause I mean, you obviously are one of the best looking guys on Mile High Huddle. I'm just kidding, the Muffin Man.
Hey, man, I'm out here climbing mountains these days. So.
I know, right? You're doing good. How was your trip to, what was it? Mount St. Helens the other day? That looked like a blast.
Yeah, summited Mount St. Helens, left the trailhead at 3, up at 7 a.m., and it was good. And I see Willie's really happy to see me here. Didn't realize freaking Nick would be here too. I love Willie.
What's up, dude? In the shop with Willie is one of the best guys. He has really good questions, awesome comments and whatnot. Willie, glad to see you here. So, but guys, before we get into this, I want to just give a shout out really fast, get some matters of business here as well. You guys are watching the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Again, I'm your host, Lance Sanderson. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Sanderson MHH, and for Nick, my good buddy here, at Nick Kendell MHH. While you guys are at it, follow at Huddle Up Pod, and also the mother account at Mile High Huddle. That's where you're going to get instant news and analysis on your Denver Broncos. Film breakdowns like the Jerry Jeudy piece I just dropped late last week. Opinion articles, stuff like that. Anything regarding the Denver Broncos, you're going to find it at Mile High Huddle. And with that, guys, we're going to get on to the show here today. Interesting show for you guys. Before we get into the 53-man roster breakdown, Nick actually found this on Pro Football Focus. I can't remember what's the podcast called.
It's Mike Renner and Austin Gale. They have a good podcast. I enjoyed it. I listened to it a lot leading up to the draft. It's 2-for-1 drafts. So they mainly focus on like the college to the NFL transition. And it's, sometimes I don't agree with everything they have to say. But I think they're two pretty good minds and they have a lot of interesting takes. So it's, fun to crowdsource and, help to develop higher tier opinions and whatnot based on what other thoughts are going on. So, they had Shelby Harris on to interview this week, and he had some interesting comments on the quarterback position for the Broncos.
Yeah, man, let's just dive right into it really fast. This is Shelby Harris on the 2-for-1 podcast.
I think Teddy looks good. He's a vet. You know what I mean? And, you're not going to see many mistakes out of Teddy. And when it all comes down to it, the safe throw is the best throw sometimes. And so you know what you're getting out of Teddy. Honestly, I don't think this QB battle is really making a big deal, in the locker room. I think we just want the best guy out there. And for me, I really just feel like it's whoever turns the ball over the least. because I feel like a lot of times in the season, if you throw an interception and we get the ball back at the 15, if they get the ball at the 15, then okay, that's how we get screwed. Okay, it's fine. If we don't get it, just punt it away. Make them go 80. Make them go 80, not 15. Yeah. And especially with the defense we have, like that's why I'm like, yeah, make them go 80. Yeah, and that's what I feel like the thinking needs to be. And I think it's going to be between Drew and Teddy. I think Drew, I like Drew a lot. And, I believe in Drew and I've had Drew, but like also Teddy's a good quarterback too. So I'm happy with either of
them. A lot to unpack
in the background.
Right, yeah. I see you dancing over there too.
I know, got good vibes. It's Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Friday to everybody. A lot to unpack there. A really lot to unpack. The way that Shelby kind of spoke about, taking care of the football, the lack of turnovers and everything like that, putting the defense in key situations. And quite honestly, you think about it, and we all understand, Teddy Bridgewater threw 11 interceptions last season, but comparatively speaking to Drew Lock's 15, making the smart throw, making the right throw, not turning the football over. Does it sound to you, Nick, like Shelby is not necessarily opining that he wants Teddy Bridgewater to be the guy, but that's the way that he's kind of leaning?
I mean, if you read in between the lines, I would say that he is leaning towards Teddy Bridgewater in that sense, but it's something that I've been saying all off season. And it's something that even I think it was either Shermer or Fangio hinted at as well. It's like, we want to score points, but this is a defensive oriented team and we cannot turn the ball over like we did last year. So whichever quarterback can execute the offense, get the ball to the playmakers where they can do something after the catch and protect the football, that's going to be the guy who wins the job. And I don't think that's far from being determined. Hopefully these upcoming weeks will have a lot to do with that. But I mean, it seems pretty simple to me. Protect the ball, run the offense, and good things can happen. Don't do too much. Did you ever see Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Yeah.
Classic movie, they're kind of like, it's Russell Brand with Jason Segel. He's like on the surfboard. He's like, okay, you want to do nothing. Do nothing. And it's like, well, okay, now you're doing too much. Go back. Dude, you got to do less than that. And that's kind of the quarterback position here. You don't do too much. You don't have to do too much. You don't have to win the game. This defense, the offense even, is built where the quarterback just has to steer the ship and things will be fine. So to me, it does sound like a Teddy Bridgewater leaning for Shelby Harris, but he's a smart guy also. He goes back full circle and says, I like both these guys, whatever it is, it is. He's been coached up. Patrick Smythe. Hat tip to Patrick Smythe, one of the best in the business. These guys are coached before doing any interviews, no doubt. But reading between the lines, I would say that it is a Teddy Bridgewater-centric comment there if we are specifically reading into the turnovers comment.
And that's kind of what I got out of it when I first saw that comment and first listened to it, and then I listened to it again. I'm like, he really is talking about Teddy Bridgewater being the guy here. Like it really is. Make him go 80 yards. And this goes into kind of an interesting philosophy. I understand, the upside of Drew Lock and the touchdown passes he had, the ability to push the ball down the field, the explosive play potential, and everything like that. And I value that a lot. But I also value keeping a hold of the football and doing it as long as every single drive that you have ends in a kick or a touchdown. You're going to be doing fine. Whether that's a punt or a field goal, you're going to be doing just fine. So long as you don't turn the football over and give the other team, especially like, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, you saw that with the Broncos last season. Drew Lock had a couple of interceptions, I believe, against the Bills, and they put up 44 points or something like that. So to see every drive end in a kick, it's actually a very valuable thing. And it's kind of an interesting philosophical question. I'm going to dial this down here in a second, but interesting philosophical question that Eric brought up to us on our group chat a couple of months ago. Would you rather have a quarterback that is guaranteed to throw 3 touchdown passes every single game, or a field goal kicker that will be able to make every single field goal from any distance, regardless of the conditions? Now, if you really think about that, obviously the 3 touchdowns sounds great. Cool. You're going to guaranteed to score 3 touchdowns, right? 21 points. But if you have a kicker that can make every single field goal from any distance, regardless of the conditions, you have 9 drives in a game on average, something like that. If you're scoring 3 points every single drive because he can make a field goal from any distance, you're scoring 27. So give me that guaranteed 27 points because we're ending every single drive with a kick. You know what I mean? It's interesting in that aspect. I understand, obviously the higher upside of scoring the touchdowns, it takes three field goals to beat a touchdown. But if you can continuously put yourself in that position to score points every single drive, and if nothing else, make the offense do it as much as they possibly can, you can beat a quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes by controlling the football, putting up as many points as you possibly can, and making them use the entire field and utilize this defense. I think that's a very interesting point. And Nick, what do you think about that?
I will say there is one sort of flaw in the logic there where you're assuming there are no turnovers that happen.
Right. Yep.
So that's a big difference. As far as like not every single drive is ending in a punt or a touchdown or a field goal, because you have those turnover ones as well. So that's limiting that impact. But that is an interesting conversation to have and topic. It probably also depends on what the rest of your team looks like, right? Like if you're guaranteed was it guaranteed 3 touchdowns or was it only 3 touchdowns?
It was guaranteed 3 touchdown passes. So and it can be more. Yes, it definitely can be more.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. But will be interesting for sure. Let's get to some of these. We got the super chats starting to roll in here, so let's get through some of these guys. We got Braden Poff coming in here, but Braden, don't recognize you. But good to see you. $2 super over on YouTube. He says 9-8 with Teddy at best, 11-6 with Drew at worst. Well, Braden, I think we know where your alliances stand. I'm not planting my flag anywhere. Because I want to gather more data and see what happens and let this quarterback battle play itself out. But, thank you very much for the comment, Braden. And 11-6 with Drew at worst. You're expecting some big steps forward from Drew Lock. Yeah. Definitely could happen. I want to see it, but we'll see. And BX Bronco Jedi coming in here over on YouTube as well, saying with Teddy, this is a playoff period. This is a playoff bound team, period. So I think I'm filling in the blanks there for you, Jedi. It's definitely possible. I would say I don't think that with Teddy, it's a guaranteed playoff team. Even with the weapons, there's a lot of projection, right? It's such a young offense with the quarterback position. You got questions on the offensive line still. They need to take steps forward. And the defense, while they really attacked the secondary this year, both your star pass rushers are questions right now with injuries. So I wouldn't say guaranteed for playoffs, but I do think that Teddy, I've said all offseason, Teddy really raises the floor of your team. And that's something that with everybody, all these people on hot seats, the Broncos on the second longest AFC playoff drought, only behind the Jets, which is crazy to say, coming off the Super Bowl victory. It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, it is a crazy dynamic because, if Drew Lock does take that next step forward, and I mean, he's got all the tools. Let's be honest here. I'm not going to mince any words here. I don't necessarily think that Drew Lock is going to take that next step. I don't have the faith in that. I don't necessarily have the faith that Teddy Bridgewater is going to take this team to the next level either, but he's going to bring it a more grounded and a ground-centric approach, more safe and conservative approach, and might be able to not lose games. He may not be able to go out and win you a game, but he's going to play well enough to not lose you a game. And that's the interesting dichotomy here, because if Drew Lock takes that next step, he can go out and win games. He has the talent and the ability to do that. It's just, do you really trust that he's going to be able to do that? And there's an interesting question here. Holden Adams jumping in here on Facebook. He says, could Drew benefit from sitting behind a Teddy Bridgewater for a year and refining his game? Or would that mean Lock has officially failed and is just a backup quarterback in the NFL? I mean, it's a fun question because, quite honestly, if Drew Lock doesn't win this job and it is Teddy and Teddy starts out the season, you can look at it one of two ways. Drew Lock's done, and this the end of his career in Denver, and he probably is going to be cut and turn into an NFL journeyman, similarly to like a Ryan Fitzpatrick. Or they're saying, well, he still needs just a little bit more time. We're going to get him get his feet wet just a little bit more in practice, let him go up against this defense, and we'll see. We'll see if we can't go to him later in the season, and maybe even if Teddy's playing well. We want to see what Drew Lock is. He's showing us these steps. He's showing these progressions. Let's see what he can do. Get him out there and see if he is the franchise guy that we actually think. I mean, again, that's an interesting two-sided conversation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this would have been much more possible if this happened a year ago, where you had Drew Lock that we saw a little glimpse of, but after 2 years, the big thing is you only have 2 years left to control with Drew Lock, and that makes it very hard to not gather more data on him this season. And you made a good comment, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that's right now the most likely career outcome for Drew Lock, a guy who will start here and there, and you'll see some incredible throws and some tight window throws, but also you'll see his fair share of 4 interception games and like WTF games, decisions. So, but there's only 18 starts so far, second year in the system, good offense coming around him. There is definitely reason for optimism. And I know that a lot of people point to the tools with Drew Lock, and I'm definitely somebody who's a tool oriented, scout when it comes to analyzing the quarterback position, but tools also don't guarantee, excellence. Like one of the more toolsy quarterbacks I can remember coming out the last decade as far as like arm talent, body build, and solid athleticism is Cardale Jones. But that dude did not work very hard and just didn't have it as far as the instincts or the processing. And I don't even know if he's in the league anymore. But if he was in the league, he'd have one of the strongest arms in the league. But tools really only do take you so far because you have to have those intangibles, the intellect as well that goes with those.
Yeah, well, at least Cardell Jones, with all the tools and everything, wasn't caught crying on the sidelines like Paxton Lynch was. Because again,
his tools are overrated. He was overrated tools wise.
Yeah, he was. Andrew Morrow jumping in here with the $5 super chat. Hello, gentlemen. Still at Disney World and busy, but keep up the great work. # get Rodgers. Now that is something that we can definitely both agree on. Guys, we're gonna kind of try to keep this show a little bit early tonight. I got another super chat here from Travis Weber. I'm gonna grab that really fast. Good evening, Broncos country. Any surprises we will see in the 53-man roster? And this is we like to call that a segue in the business. The perfect segue here. Now, I'm actually kind of excited here. Usually we do this with Eric Trickle, and obviously, with him not being here tonight, we had to get somebody here. And Nick, obviously, jumping in here, the host of the Building the Broncos podcast. Building the Broncos. This is building the team. So I get to have a professional expert opinion on this outside of my own or outside of the echo chamber that we get with Eric Trickle sometimes on building this roster. Now, Nick got here just a little bit late, so I built my roster. We're going to have him react to what I've got going on here. And obviously, starting off the most important position, quarterback, I only have two, Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, in whatever order you want to put them in there. I would like to see Drew start this year, at least sometime. I honestly want to see him start the season, but at the same time, if it's going to equate to wins and getting this team onto a hot start in the early season schedule, Teddy Bridgewater's the guy. Pretty much no argument there, Nick, right? We're not seeing Brett Rippon on this roster?
I don't think you'll see Brett Rippon on this roster, but we got Braden coming in here. Obviously, he had the comment earlier about the floor being, 11-6 with Locke, so he's letting it be known. Horse emoji, rooster emoji, and padlock emoji. You kids and your emojis, I don't even know what you mean. No, no, I think it's possible that Rippon could still make the roster, but with Teddy and Drew, it's not like you have a young developmental quarterback, and let's call Rippon what he is, right? He's a future coach more than he is a future starting caliber quarterback. Just the arm talent, the athleticism is not there. So is what it is. Hopefully he'll be a good coach at some point. And Benjamin's in the house. Evening, Ben. Evening, fellas. Thank you very much. And it's the Stars as well. Thank you. You're a star. Holden Adams also with the Stars. Thank you very much, Holden. Salute to you. And Dave, careful. This hat's already getting pretty tight. Nick has the brain power to make up for the loss of Eric. Well, we both certainly, have the mouth power as far as like jabbering away. So that's, thank you very much. Just enjoy talking ball with you guys, but I think that's definitely a good call. With everything that the coaches have said, now Shelby Harris is saying it. I know you have Drew Lock listed quarterback 1. I think it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater. I think it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater out of the gate. I think he is going to be the starter.
I do too. I just wrote Drew down first, so I read it off in that order. I do think Teddy actually wins the job out of camp, and if they do to go to Drew, it's going to be 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks into the season, something like that. And unless the Broncos are playing well, unless Teddy's playing really well, I think that it's going to be Teddy throughout the season. But I do think he wins the job outright in camp, which is unfortunate.
Honestly, I try not to have rooting interests other than the team itself. For individual players, I put. God, okay, there's 2 caveats to that. Von Miller, he was here before I became an analyst. I'll love Von forever. It's very hard for me to be not unbiased with him. Also, it's pretty hard for me to be unbiased with the Hawkeyes that are Broncos on the roster. God damn, I love them. Noah Fant, you're a real one, buddy. But that's
no love to Michael Ojemudia.
I love Michael Ojemudia. I love Josie Jewell's great. Casey Kreider, man, why did they have to move on from him? He's the best long snapper I know. But when we're talking about the quarterback position here, I do think Teddy's going to win it. But we're not supposed to cheer for these guys outright, right? I guess you can do it however you want. But as an analyst, I try not to be biased, insert bias in that, because I feel like it takes away from the analysis. It's better for the Broncos if Drew Lock wins this job outright, and not because they're both poor or anything like that, but it's because Drew Lock takes a step forward. The Broncos have 2 years of control left. He's still young. So that's what I'd hope. That's what you'd hope for a team. It's more important though to get the best guy out there to take advantage of this roster and to get out of this playoff funk, right? This is too much. When's the last time the Broncos played a meaningful football game in the month of November? Right?
Yeah,
it's been way too long. So I think that's more important than, if Drew Lock loses the job and Teddy gives you a better chance to play meaningful football late in the season, so be it.
Yeah, going back to that, weren't the Broncos 7-4 or something like that in November? in 2016, Trevor Siemian. That was your Trevor Siemian was playing.
Yep, that was the last time. I think.
Yeah, that was the last time. That's right. And there was actually a play that Trevor Siemian missed Demaryius Thomas wide open. He threw the ball like 10 yards short in the end zone. It would have been a game-winning touchdown too. But anyways, moving this forward here, running back position. I originally wrote down 4 guys. I originally had Royce Freeman making the roster, but I decided to change my mind. I've been hearing really good things about another player. We'll get to that here in just a few minutes on the offensive side of the football. But Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, Mike Boone, obviously. With Mike Boone, I've been hearing some things from Benjamin Albright on Broncos Country tonight about Mike Boone being the kick returner this year, which could definitely have some shakedown effects to the wide receiver position as well with, Deontay Spencer and also with Tyree Cleveland. So, I mean, Mike Boone making this roster, obviously the George Paton went out and got his guy from Minnesota, gave him $1.1 million on a one-year deal. They obviously went out and drafted Javonte Williams in the second round, number 35 overall. And then obviously Melvin Gordon with the big deal that he had last season that everybody really hated. But you know what? I want to say this. I'm going to pound the table on this one. Melvin Gordon actually lived up to that contract. He really did. If you think about it, he made $8 million last season. He was the 9th highest paid running back. You know who was number 9 in rushing yards last season? Melvin freaking Gordon. Okay. Yeah. He went out over the last 8 games, rushed for 563 yards and 5 touchdowns. It's in 8 games. You extrapolate that data out over a 16-game season. That's 1,200 yards. I would rank 4th in the NFL. Okay. Yeah. So he went out, he got paid a lot of money and no one wanted to see him get that contract, but damn it, he lived up to it. Let's stop the hate for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest thing with the Melvin Gordon contract is know where you are and what your window is. And I'm not looking to pay a running back huge money unless I think I'm a running back away from a Super Bowl contention.
Right.
And this team obviously was not that last year in hindsight, but it wasn't that going into it either. And also when you talk about the Melvin Gordon contract cap hit last year, $7 million, 2020, about $9 million this year. So average $8 million. Yeah, that's about right. So my biggest thing is understanding the window that you are, being real with where you are. Now, if your argument is I need to have that type of running back to develop my quarterback to find out if Drew Lock can be the guy, I'm more ears to that, if that's your explanation. And I think we got Travis coming in here with some stars. Thank you very much, Travis.
Thanks, Travis.
Hope you're doing well out in Utah. A friend of mine going way back on the old Facebook on the Broncos page. So good to see you, Travis. Thank you for joining us. Mike Boone as a kick returner, I could definitely see it. He is one that, and it's just a general, you're into coaching. Like the kick returner is typically a bigger body guy who's very strong, can take the ball, take some hits, and more of a straight line runner. Where the kick return or the punt returner is more a little bit, can be smaller, jittery, etc. If they can figure out a way to have your running back 3 be the kick returner and then open up where you don't have to hold on to a Deontay Spencer, I'm all for it. I've been predicting a Tyree Cleveland for that role, given his body type and his experience there. But if it could be Mike Boone, all the better. I'm all about that. And Mike Boone becoming a super special teams player as a running back 3. I know I say running backs don't matter, but if they're contributing on special teams, maybe they are valuing just a little bit for me.
Right. And that actually goes into the conversation I want to get here with Royce Freeman. He doesn't play special teams. He never has. Nope. He's never been. So he's a great receiver out of the backfield. You can line him up out wide and throw him the football. We saw that in 2018 with Royce Freeman and a little bit in 2017 as well, where he was catching the ball out of the backfield way better than Phillip Lindsay was, which is another reason why the Broncos moved on from Phillip Lindsay and went and got Melvin Gordon. But if you don't play special teams on this roster, it's too talented. There's way too much talent in the top, 48, 40, 47, 48, 49 guys to have a running back that's, he's a niche player at best at this particular point. I like Royce Freeman. That's not to say anything bad about him. I think he's a good physical runner. He does good things out of the backfield, decent pass protector. There's a role for him in the NFL. It's just not on this team. And that's unfortunate because I like Royce Freeman. Now, the wide receiver position, obviously the big 4, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, whatever order you want to put him in there. I have Tyree Cleveland on this roster as well. I think the special teams aspect of him, he offers a different skill set too, something that the Broncos don't have, a bigger body that can really stretch the field vertically. And then I have Seth Williams. This is another red zone threat. And obviously, being a 6th-round draft pick this last season, George Paton's going to get his guy. He can play some special teams. He didn't really do that at Auburn, but he played safety at high school, and he played as a very physical safety from the sound of it, coming downhill, laying some hits. So I think that Seth Williams being a gunner, you could see him be another, he's obviously a bigger version, but a Kayvon Webster's kind of guy. Cody Latimer is probably the better comparison there. So that's the way that I went with the wide receiver position. Nick, any qualms with that?
These are the exact same guys I would pick if you think Mike Boone or Tyree Cleveland could return kicks, and you're okay with KJ Hamler or one of these cornerbacks down the line returning punts. Then that's great. That's creating room. Deontay Spencer, while he's been a good returner, that's still he's older. You don't have many years of control left, which matters for taking these guys. And I don't know if I want to subject Seth Williams to the waiver wire or anything to try to sneak him on the practice squad, considering he's a 6th-round pick on him. And Eric's here. Eric, how you doing, buddy? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying the day off. Thank you for stopping by, though. The thing with Seth Williams, too, is that he was drafted to be, it's not about what he does this year. He has a chance to develop into a starting caliber or, 4th wide receiver, first guy off the bench, as an X receiver. And with how both Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton are going to be free agents at the end of the season, both X receivers, that's Seth Williams' role. He's going to take over one of those players' contracts. You have 4 years of control on him. You're going to try to get that guy in the roster, unless it's obvious he doesn't belong. Right? That's something that could happen here throughout training camp. But odds are, just with both those contracts there, the niche fill, how different each wide receiver is. He's an X. They drafted him to fill one of those guys' shoes. Maybe not fully fill their shoes, but being a fill-in for the position and the role.
Right. And I think, honestly, and this is a big reason why I kind of thought about this for a minute here. Seth Williams making the roster. We still don't know what's going on with Aaron Rodgers' deal. If the Broncos are going to be able to move on, go and get an Aaron Rodgers, they're going to want a receiver. They're going to want a young receiver with some upside. I don't think that's Seth Williams. I think Tim Patrick's the guy you got to watch out for there. Honestly, he had an amazing season last year, 71 catches, 0 drops, really filled in well for Cortland Sutton. He has that prototypical X mold. And now we're hearing some rumors about Devontae Adams potentially. He's not talking to the Green Bay Packers in contract extensions anymore. Tim Patrick has X upside, maybe not wide receiver 1 upside, but he can be a really solid number 2. Yeah. And he proved that last season.
Yep. No, he's really good. I think it was Pro Football Focus again saying the Saints should trade for him. I love Tim Patrick. If the Saints wanted to give us a 2nd-round pick, good luck, Tim Patrick in New Orleans. But he's really good. He's gonna have another good season, and Broncos have depth there, and that's a position where you need 4 guys that you can depend on, because injuries are going to happen, especially with a 17 game season now. And he's extremely underrated from the national perspective. Yep. And I'm excited to see what he can do this year. Me too. Speaking of excited, Travis coming back in. I know Browning is on the PUP. Will we see him play this season, make the roster? Well, unless he goes on the injured reserve or the injury designation list, then you probably will see him make the roster. I guess this could be something that lingers. It feels like they're being pretty hush-hush with it overall, so I don't know. But as far as seeing him play this season, it's the same exact thing with Seth Williams, right? You have both your starting linebackers are going to be free agents at the end of the season, and you have Strnad and Browning, who you'll have 2 to 3 years left of control for Strnad and Browning. And you hope that one of those guys can fill at least one of those roles. But as far as what Browning does this season, if he does anything beyond contributing to special teams, that's icing, right? You shouldn't have really anything expectation-wise beyond that for Browning in 2021.
Right. I agree with you on that. And the POP, that's precautionary. He can come he can come off the PUP list at any time. During training camp for sure. And then I know that if he starts the season on PUP, he has to come off, I think it was before week 6 or week 8. I wish I knew that rule. But I know that if he doesn't come off by week 8, I think is what it is, to the active roster, then he gets placed to injured reserve automatically. So we could potentially see Baron Browning sit out for a little while, but it doesn't sound like it's that serious of an issue. I think it was Vic Fangio spoke about it. This was back at rookie minicamp where he suffered that knee injury, and it was more of a bone thing than a ligament thing. So there's no ligament structural damage that way. I'm not sure if it's a bone bruise or a small fracture or something like that, which wouldn't necessarily be great by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, he also did say that he was going to be good to go by training camp. Maybe not the onset of training camp, but by training camp. So it sounds like he's going to be ready to go here soon. And Peter Middleton jumping in here. It opens the roster hugely for Strnad, though. Excited for him. Guys, I have both those guys on the roster. But before we get to that, we got to grab In the Shop with Willie with a $2 super chat. Where did it go? There it is. We are not getting Rodgers. We can stop that. Hey, Willie, no, don't you dare crush my hopes and dreams, buddy. If we get Rodgers, this team's a Super Bowl contender. Quite honestly, they might be the best team in the AFC. They really could be.
It would be fun. But Willie's riding his guy. He's ride or die Drew Lock supporter. And you know what? God bless. Good luck.
Sorry, John.
But it's no, totally fine. And Robert saying, I disagree with Willie. We're getting Aaron Rodgers next month. Well, we'll see what happens. But so far, I agree with everything you've put out here. You also have Deontay Spencer not making the roster. Probably one of the final guys cut. And it's just because you have other guys that can fill that role. While the kick returner, punt returner is important, it's still pretty niche. So I think our first disagreement, though, is coming right up here at the tight end position. You wrote down 3 next to tight end, but now you have 4 guys listed here. So tell me about that first.
All right, so obviously Noah Fant and Andrew Beck. I have Andrew Beck number 2 right now because we just don't know with Alberto Coegbanom and he's coming off the torn ACL. He was out there in minicamp and everything. We got to see what that looks like. He's obviously going to make the roster if he's not put on PUP or maybe even injured reserve coming out of training camp. But the 4th guy I have, Eric Salbert. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Eric Salbert, about him being the Y tight end. He's a decent blocker, can get out there and get nasty in the running game. Not the best receiver, but I'm hearing good things that he could be the 4th tight end on this roster and potentially push off of Royce Freeman, which that's the way I had it, was Royce Freeman and then Eric Salbert not being on there. But then I switched it to Eric Salbert and Royce Freeman being the last guy cut.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go with Sean Beyer because go Hawks. But also I want to give a shout out to Eric Salbert because he went to Drake, which is a smaller college in central Iowa, in Des Moines, Iowa. So I have a friend who went there with him and knew Eric. So hopefully he will do well. I know he's been bounced around the league for a little bit. I think he was a Shrine Bowl standout as well when he came out.
Yep.
So Drake Bulldog. That 4th tight end position, I probably would put in Sean Beyer right now, just because younger, more years of control. Sean also is a decent blocker. And I love Sean's mom. She saved me from an Iowa, Wisconsin game where I had way too many adult beverages, and she said, "Here, have some food." So true story. So gotta give a shout out to her. But that's a tough one. And looking at this roster, right, and like how it's put up together right now, I feel like tight end, that Y tight end specifically, is a position where you could see the Broncos maybe bring in outside help. There'll probably be a body out there that they could bring in, compete, but the ones they have right now just don't really give me much hope, I guess, or they don't really make me very excited. I don't feel very stable with them either. And a lot of that could come down to how confident they are in Alberto Coegbanom's health.
So in the shop with Willie in here, blowing up the chat. First off, he has another $2 super chat, and he says, let me grab that really fast. Consider your dreams crushed. No Rodgers. And then he comes back in here with, I don't want Rodgers, not even a little bit, especially because I'd owe Nick $20. What is the story behind this? Quickly.
I, honest to God, do not even remember if we bet or not, or if he said something in one of the chats where if that happens, I'll give you $20, Nick, because I don't even remember the parameters for that. So he's gonna have to answer that for you. But we'll see. And Peter Middleton coming here. Spencer traded for a tight end. I don't think Spencer is gonna get any value for you, right? Like
There was another question earlier that said something about Royce Freeman. He's a bust. He needs to be out of here. We need to trade him for whatever we can get. You'd be lucky to get a conditional 7th round pick for a 3rd round running back that doesn't have really much footing in the NFL right now. Like, honestly, there's no trade market there. Either he's going to make this roster like I have him as the 4th running back and barely see the field unless he's going to contribute on special teams, which he hasn't done to this point in his career, or he's going to be cut. And it's unfortunate because I liked Royce Freeman. It was a pick that I didn't necessarily agree with. I wanted Fred Warner there, but still at the same time, I mean, it is what it is. You miss out on it. You miss out on an elite talent for a guy that was a sparing, role player. So whatever. Let's go to the offensive line here, and we're going to build this from the inside out because Black Knight jumping in here on Twitch. Got to give a shout out to our Twitch subscribers, guys. Mile High Huddle at Twitch. Go subscribe there as well. Black Knight 323. I think his name is Jeremy, if I do remember correctly. Yes, it is. So who do you guys think is going to be the starting center? And honestly, as much as I love Quinn Miners, I think it's Lloyd Cushenberry. Those are the 2 guys I have on the roster. Lloyd Cushenberry, obviously, you're in the system. Quinn Miners didn't play football last season. The Division III canceled their football season due to the ongoing pandemic and everything. So, well, I do like Quinn Miners. I like the athleticism. I like the physicality that he does have. I don't think that he's going to have enough right now to be able to take on Lloyd Cushenberry unless Cushenberry flat falls on his face and did not do enough in the weight room this year, because that really was the worst aspect of his game, was pass protection and holding up with what is it? The functional strength. Like, he didn't have any functional strength and he just got bullied over. So those are the 2 guys. Nick, any disagreements there?
I do not have disagreements at all. Quinn Miners, coming from Whitewater, didn't even snap a ball before the Senior Bowl in practice. That's a big ask. Also, the center position is a very heady position, and not that Miners isn't smart, and that's not what I'm getting at all, but because he doesn't have that experience, because he's a rookie, I'm guessing there's going to be a learning curve there. Either way, even if he was, played multiple years at Alabama as a starting center, and he's a late third-round pick. That's another thing. Yeah. So Miners, I think
is Cush. So is Cushenberry.
Yeah, that's true, but that's what was Cushenberry like last year?
Right.
That's struggled coming off of LSU, where he was played, I think, for the whatever the award is, where the best offensive line wins at college football award. I think maybe it's the Maxwell. I don't remember. I think so. But maybe it's Remington. I don't freaking remember. Either way, Lloyd Cushenberry, I think he is going to be the starter. It's more like, for me, if Cushenberry struggles, you could see Miners come in towards the end of the season to see if they can get a shift and to get Miners some experience, the last 3 or 4 games if the Broncos are out of it, or if Cushenberry is really struggling. But as far as starting out of the gate, unless there's an injury, I would expect it to be Miners.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, Cushenberry. Excuse me.
Yeah. You're good. Yes. Interesting fact about Quinn Miners. Going back to the Senior Bowl really fast. You said he had not snapped a ball in college. He played left and right guard, specifically, I think left guard for the most part.
Yeah.
When he was at the Senior Bowl, he actually broke his hand. Did you know that, Nick? He broke a bone in his hand and then went out there and continued to play throughout the rest of the Senior Bowl practices as a center, snapping with a broken hand. This guy wants to play football, and he's pretty damn good at it. So I don't want to really throw him out, but I do understand. He didn't play football last year, and he has the highlight, workout videos and stuff like that. It's a fun story, the belly of the beast and whatnot. Like you said, though, Nick, there's a big, strong learning curve going from D3 to professional football, learning a new offense, learning a new position. That's probably arguably one of the most important positions on the offensive line, not named left tackle. And I heard Carl talking about this earlier a couple of weeks ago on Building the Broncos about how right tackle is probably getting bumped down the list just a little bit as far as the center goes. I disagree with him too, but it's center is probably that next position though. If it's left tackle, right tackle, then the center, because your center has to set the line protections and set the shifts and know everything that's going on, know every single position, how to work, what's going on in front of him, reading defenses as well. It's a very smart, intelligent position, and you have to be good at it to be able. You have to have a high football IQ to be able to do that well. Now, to go to the outside, or to the next position on the outside, obviously you got your guards, Dalton Reisner, Graham Glasgow returning as starters, Netani Muti, and then I have Austin Sloatman, who was just on the Huddle Up podcast. I believe it was on Monday. If you guys haven't seen that, go to Mile High Huddle on YouTube. Go check that out. It was a great show. It was very candid. He did a really good job. It was really fun. But Sloatman obviously has some guard center versatility there. So I value versatility on my offensive linemen. The more hats you can wear, the more valuable you are. So that's another reason why I had him. But Netani Moody is really the interesting case study here.
Yeah. You have 10 offensive linemen making the roster here. Yep. Do you think there'll be 10? Is that typical number, or is it 9?
It's 9 or 10, but as of right now, I think they're going to be. I think it's going to be 10. I really do. The Broncos have a guy that they really like, and Mike Munchback. This is a pet project out of him. I can't remember if he's in his second or third year now, but Calvin Anderson, the offensive tackle out of Texas, he played left tackle for Garrett Bowles last season against the Carolina Panthers. Actually played well, not so great at the right tackle position, but I think this might be your swing tackle. I have him on the roster right now behind Garrett Bowles, Bobby Massey, Cameron Fleming as well. But Calvin Anderson is a guy, and if you're going to keep a fourth tackle, you want to have a guy that can, again, wear multiple hats. He can play on the right side. He can play on the left side as well. That's the guy that I really think that is, if you're going to push anybody off, it's going to be Cameron Fleming or Calvin Anderson there.
Yep, I could see that. I could also see Schlotman not making. I know we like Schlotman in here, but he's another one he's on the bubble. No way to lie about that. Thank you, everybody. Andrew Baker coming in with the stars. Andrew Baker's always starring us out here. Came in late, but MHH for life. Let's go. We lost our longest Monday Night Football streak and have the record for no playoffs after a Super Bowl win. The time is now. Go Broncos. Well, I agree with you there, 100%. That's a big point there. Also, we have to get to the defense still, but it does sound like there's some actual. I know. Did you see the NFL was hinting, or people in the NFL are hinting about breaking news that could happen tonight?
Yeah, Carl said something about that. What's going on? I saw you have it in the private chat here.
Well, it sounds like there all of a sudden is a bunch of momentum that Aaron Rodgers is going to retire. If the Packers do not trade him, that's probably his last call that he can have. Pro Football Focus is saying now multiple sports books are saying that Aaron Rodgers is going to retire next week. And now Benjamin Albright is saying David Dunn, who was the agent for Aaron Rodgers, or for Carson Palmer when Carson Palmer retired from the Bengals to force his way out, is also the agent of Aaron Rodgers. So it sounds like this is a play. I mean, it's worked before. We saw it work before with Carson Palmer, and now there's a bunch of momentum as far as Aaron Rodgers retiring to force his hand, and it's either trade me or nothing.
That is bombshell information. That has me almost as excited as we were the night of the draft. Remember when those reports came out from Mark Schlereth about how he's going to, the Broncos have a deal and whatnot. Black Knight, Jeremy jumping back in here. Do you think Denver trades for Rodgers? I firmly believe they do. In whether it's this season or next season, I firmly believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Denver Bronco within the next year. I do firmly believe that. I hope it comes to fruition here in the next few days. With this, I mean, he actually put out really kind of the biggest piece of leverage that he had. He had he had the opt-out window back in early July where you can opt out due to the COVID efforts and stuff like that. Like, he didn't do that. He hasn't really went out and said, I want you to trade me. I'm not going to play for you. This is it. This is the move right here that says, I will not play this season unless you trade me. Yeah, and Dave actually has a good point here. His trade value goes down every day he isn't traded.
Yeah, man, this is interesting. You always said, would Aaron Rodgers really be willing to do that? But it sounds like Vegas is saying that now, and sounds like Albright is hinting at it as well. And there's history there with Dunn being the agent. So, man, this would be really interesting if it happened. We'll let that simmer for a second. The comment section want to go. We obviously wanted to get out of here in 2 minutes. That's probably not going to happen. But the rest of the offense, Lance, let's hammer it out.
All right, so the rest of the offense, we have
clown shoes. Willie, be nice. It's Friday.
I'm not wearing clown shoes, man. I'm wearing flip flops.
It's good vibes.
Come on, man. That was the rest of the offense. So you have we'll just run down the offensive line really fast. Lloyd Cushenberry, Quinn Miners, obviously. You have Dalton Reiser, Graham Glasgow, Natani Moody, and Auction Slotman. Garrett Bowles, Bobby Massey, who the Broncos signed to a pretty decent money deal this offseason to play right tackle, and he's athletic enough to be able to do it. He's going to be the best right tackle the Broncos have seen in several years. Cameron Fleming, and then Calvin Anderson. On the interior of the defensive line, let's go inside out on this really fast and quickly because we only got about 10 minutes or so before Nick has to go. Interior defensive lineman, Shelby Harris, obviously, Draymond Jones, obviously, Mike Purcell, obviously, McTelvin Agin, that the Broncos third-round selection from last year, Shamar Stephen, a guy that this is another one of George Payton's guys from the Minnesota Vikings. They signed to a cheap money deal. And then Deshaun Williams, a guy that Eric really liked. I liked a lot as well. He played it very nicely behind Mike Purcell, and I think Mike Purcell is fantastic. He really is probably the best run-stuffing 0-1 technique in the NFL. And that's seriously, his run stop percentage 2 years ago, number one in the NFL. His run stop grade per Pro Football Focus in 2 years ago, number one in the NFL. This guy is fantastic. I love Mike Purcell. Yeah,
I do think that there's a little bit of nuance to that data where he's asked to do his role, and sometimes your run stuff is not going to be as good if you are also trying to rush the passer. So somebody like a Dexter Lawrence or a Vita Vea or a Jonathan Hankins, because they are also trying to push a gap, are not going to be as staunch in their ability to anchor. But no doubt, he is very good and he's underrated. And the Broncos paid him what a nose tackle that doesn't offer much pass rush should be. So there's value there. And he's a good player, and I hope he's healthy, right? The Liz Frank injury, that's what zapped Ryan Clady of his career.
It's what zapped Champ Bailey as well.
Yep. So you want to watch out for that. That does concern me, but hopefully it'll be fine. And we got Peter Middleton coming in saying, this has been fun. Who is the surprise cut or trade? And with the stars there, thank you very much, Peter. Surprise cut, I guess the surprise cut could be one of those wide receivers there, maybe like a Tyree Cleveland or a Seth Williams, considering how young they are. But as the roster set, I guess the most likely big surprise would be Bryce Callahan, right? You can save $8.5 million. You have a lot of cornerbacks. There's only 1 year left of control left. But that would be a big surprise. So we'll see.
I said it earlier. Tim Patrick to Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers. Make it happen. Let's go. Edge defenders for the Broncos. I'm going to kind of wrap this up here, guys. Edge defenders for the Broncos. I only have 4 making it this year. I wanted to put a 5th one, but I don't know. Undrafted rookie free agent Andre Mintz, I believe out of Purdue. I'm forgetting the school. It's right at the tip of my tongue. Anyways, Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, obviously Malik Reed last year had a really decent season, doing some cleanup work for the most part behind Bradley Chubb. And then Jonathan Cooper is the guy that I have. This is George Payton's guy. I mean, we had Derek Tuska on the roster last year. That's the water on the bridge at this particular point. Derek Tuska wasn't great. He's not very long. He's not very athletic. He's just kind of a guy. Did decent on special teams, but Jonathan Cooper actually has some upside. He can rush passer. Is decent in the setting the edge against the running game. This is a guy you can develop. And with Von Miller at the tail end of his career, Jonathan Cooper is actually kind of a very intriguing prospect to me.
Is he going to be on the roster this year? Or is he going to be a guy who's injured, put on the injury reserve, put on the shelf with the heart condition and whatnot, and be given a year to develop? Because they can protect them then, create a roster spot, and give him a full year to get healthy. So I'm excited about Cooper as well, but with the heart condition and everything, I could see them, giving him that redshirt season where he is protected. Obviously, one of the years of his contract will be eaten up, but still, you're not subjecting him to being taken elsewhere by another team. And you don't even have to worry about the football stuff. Just get healthy, slow development. What is he, a 7th round pick? Yep. That's not a bad path for him. So I agree with you listing him here because there is a big drop off at the edge rusher position. Yep. But I could see the Broncos easily saying, you know what, this guy, we're going to give him a year.
Well, and the edge rusher position is probably, need number 2 right now on this roster, quite honestly, behind quarterback. And
right tackle.
Long term, yeah. Right tackle for sure. But at the same time, I mean, when you have Von Miller gone, Malik Reed we don't necessarily know. He's okay. Jonathan Cooper, again, with a heart issue. Bradley Chubb, we still don't know exactly what he's going to be. He's still coming off that ACL injury. Didn't have the greatest season last year. Yep. Had a lot of pressures, but he didn't get home. So could the Broncos be looking edge round 1 next year if they if they get Aaron Rodgers? Does edge go to need number 1?
Edge or right tackle. Right. Yeah. They're both very valuable positions. I have a hard time putting one over the other. It depends on what talent is available, right? Like let the player decide at that point. That's why you do tiers rather than zeroing in on one position. Right. Let's keep it going on this line. Predicting the roster here.
All right, so off-ball linebackers, and yes, off-ball linebackers, not inside linebackers. No, off-ball linebackers, guys that play off the ball. Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell. I have Baron Browning making the roster just because I think he is going to come off the PUP list at some point. Justin Strnad, and then this was one of the last guys I had on the roster, and Josh Watson, third-year player out of CSU, special teams guy. I think that's really the upside for him. And you can substitute Natrez Patrick here as well, but Natrez Patrick right now is currently on the injured reserve list, so he I don't think he's actually on IR, but he is on the reserve list. So we'll figure out some more about him here soon. But I have the Broncos keeping 5 off-ball linebackers just because of not necessarily the importance, but you don't know what's going to happen. Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell, you got some young guys you want to bring up and see what they can do.
Yeah, no, this is a good list here. I do think that we kind of talked about it earlier here, but I liked Tuska coming out as far as a 7th round pick, right? But he looked a little bit small last year. But I do think there's a spot for him on this roster as kind of a hybrid edge and off-ball player. Right. He's gonna have to transition to that second level of the defense if he's gonna hang in the NFL. He just does not have the frame to hang. Excuse the rhyming. As a full-time edge defender, so I could see him working at the second level, getting some specialist or some niche snaps at the edge as well, and bringing special teams ability and filling in a kind of a 2-for-1 there on the back end of the roster, and especially because he's still so cheap. 3 years left of control. That stuff matters when you're talking about the very back end of the roster.
Yep, absolutely. Cornerbacks here. This was the really fun one because there's a lot of really high-quality guys here. Obviously, Kyle Fuller, Ronald Darby, Bryce Callahan, Pat Surtain, 9th overall pick. He's definitely making the roster. There's no questions there. I have Michael Ojemudia here as well, but we're going to see him play kind of an interesting role here. I think you can play him. He's better suited as a boundary cornerback. I think that they're going to try to line him up at some star role and use him with that tackling ability, his aggressiveness coming downhill, driving on ball carriers. Michael Ojemudia might see some safety kind of hybrid linebacker role snaps there as well. And then I have Kerry Vincent Jr. making this roster. This is another versatile chess piece. He's small. That's a big thing, and he's not necessarily very physical, but this dude can cover, man. I tell you what, he can play in the slot. One of the best slot cornerbacks in college football. A couple years ago, he opted out last season, so he didn't play. But at the same time, he's fluid, he's quick, he's aggressive going towards the football. He gets his hands on a lot of footballs. I really like Kerry Vincent Jr. If you guys remember going back to the draft stream, I literally jumped out of my chair when I found out the Broncos drafted Kerry Vincent Jr. after getting Jamar Johnson and Caden Stearns. I'm like, you bet, man. This secondary just got so much more deep. They got so versatile. There's a lot of things you can do, and you can throw each one of these players out there, and they can have an impact.
Yeah, no, that's a good list there. Obviously, saying Bassey's not making the roster here. Duke Dawson's not making the roster here. At least you got to listen to the safety. Nope, you don't. So this makes a lot of sense to me. These are the guys that I would have as well. You list 6 cornerbacks. Maybe to some people that's a lot, but when the Broncos have invested as much as they have, that's a position you're looking to invest heavily in. So I agree with you, and I also agree with all your safeties as well. So the only some of these positions, maybe the interior defensive line at the very end, that last edge rusher, that last tight end, those are some spots, that last linebacker, where that's what's going to make training camp fun, right? Like people want to see the quarterback battle, people want to see what happens at the pecking order of the cornerbacks, but I want to see who's going to make the spot 48 through 53, right? Those, as crazy as it is, very fun to watch those guys and see who makes it.
Right. And that's the hardest part of doing this whole exercise. I mean, do you keep Royce Freeman over Eric Sauber? Do you have, Austin Sloatman making the roster, Calvin Anderson, who is it Josh Watson potentially? 50, 51, 52, and 53 are the hardest ones to do in this entire thing. Wrap this up really quick. Safeties, obviously you have Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, and then the 2 rookies, Caden Stearns and Jamar Johnson. Specialists, we don't need to go over that. You have Sam Martin, Brandon McManus, and then whoever the long snapper is. Is it Jacob Bobenmoyer? I think that's who it is. Who cares? Doesn't necessarily matter. But that pretty much rounds up. Nick, do you have really any qualms? Is there any one guy that is eyebrow raised to you?
Nobody really here. I mean, you have a lot of the same names. It's the back end of the roster stuff, but is that really eyebrow raising? I don't know. Maybe 10 offensive linemen, maybe keeping Deontay Spencer on instead, something like that. Looking at the roster, it looks like a pretty good roster. Depth concerns, but you're gonna have depth concerns. Every single team's gonna have depth concerns long term for edge rusher, linebacker starting turnover coming up here. The tight end too. What can Albert Okwuegbunam do? But Okwuegbunam. Excuse me if I said that wrong. But not to beat a dead horse, it's that quarterback position, man. It's make or break. Make or break for the team. It looks good on paper. They'll go as far as that quarterback will take them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Nick, hey. Thank you very much for joining me today, man. I really do appreciate you being able to fill in for Eric. I know he appreciates you as well. It's great to be able to do this, get Dove Valley Deep Divers building the Broncos in this head-to-head duel, a clash of clans or whatever you want to call it. So I really do appreciate you for joining me today, man.
Yeah, no problem. It's a lot of fun to join. It's good to see you as well. I'm glad to see the facial hair, everyone sticking out there. Make sure you let Lance know that the facial hair is strong. I'm a little jealous. I cannot grow it as strong. I would love to get a mountain mustache going, but I'm not that cool. Not yet. But yeah, thanks for having me on. And thank you also for potentially covering for me next week as well. Yeah. And also thanks to John for joining us today as well. Shows are always a lot funner and easier when he joins us as well. So John, you're a real one. Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate you, John, for doing everything you guys, for everything you do behind the scenes, running the ones and twos. Guys, you guys can find us. We're going to wrap it up here on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can find us on Twitter. You find me at Sanderson MHH. For Nick, my co-host, at Nick Kendell MHH. And obviously for Eric, my usual co-host, at Eric Trickle. For John, at John K MHH. That's John KAYMHH. Also, let's see, we got In the Shop with Willie with another $2. Willie, dude, what's up, bro? Thank you for that. We appreciate you. Drew looked good this year. Take it to the bank. Hey, I'm hopeful. I am. I don't necessarily have the most faith in it, but I am hopeful. I really am. I hope that he does take that next step because really it is what's best for the Broncos, that he turns into the franchise guy that they wanted him to be. But, John, I'm going to steal the sticks here, guys. Again, back to the matters of business here, guys. Make sure you guys, while you're at it on Twitter, follow at Mile High Huddle. That's the mother account. Instant news and analysis, breaking news, film articles, opinion articles, anything regarding the Denver Broncos, you're going to find it at Mile High Huddle. Guys, if you guys are in a financial position and able to do so, head on over to huddleuppod.com. That's the merch tent. That's where you're going to get yourself one of these Dove Valley Deep Divers hats, or one of Nick's Building the Broncos hats, or you can get this new Dove Valley Deep Divers State of Being t-shirt. That's been up there for a few weeks now. Make sure you guys head on over there, get yourself something. There's something for everybody, a hat, coffee cup, face mask. There's a hoodie, something for the guys, something for the gals, a onesie for your baby if that's your fancy. Get on over there. HuddleUpPod.com is a great way to support the show. Facebook supporters, go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Click the blue Become a Supporter button. That's where you're going to get premium content from Zach Kelberman on Kelberman's Corner Sundays at noon, and also Eric Trickle, who's not going to be doing the Trickle Zone this weekend, but usually that show goes live Saturday at noon as well. And folks, if you guys are not financially able to do so, or that's just not your bag, you don't want to do anything like that, you just enjoy the content, the 3 easiest things you guys should be doing, wherever you guys are watching the show, subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you guys get your podcast content, subscribe to Mile High Huddle, like every video you guys see across all platforms. And if you love it, share it. Get it out in front of as many Broncos fans as possible, because the more eyes that we have, the most organic way that we can do to it improve and expand our show to do what we do best, which is cover your Denver Broncos. Now, Nick, I always ask Eric this before we get out of here. Do you have any last words, bud?
Any last words? Everyone stay safe. Everyone have a great weekend. I'll see you guys tomorrow night as well. And, either way, we can disagree on the quarterback position. It can get heated in there, but we all want the same thing in the end, and that's the Broncos regaining their rightful birthright mantle at the top of the AFC. And any way we get there is fine by me. Not anyway. Let's not kill anybody, or I don't want to be having terrible people out there. We don't have to be the Chiefs to get there. But that's final words there. Everyone stay safe, have fun, love y'all, and go Broncos. I always like to say that one too.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys stay safe and take care. Thank you all for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. We'll see you guys the same time, same place next weekend. And as always, as Nick just said, go Broncos. We'll see you guys later.